don't be surprised, because that's kind of all these high vibrational energies and all of the new portals that are opening of opportunities for all of us. So I'm super excited to be sharing today about core wounds. And I want to come at this from a particular angle, because many people don't understand the importance of why you would inquire and look to alchemize these pieces within yourself. And there is both a human lens perspective, i.e., these wounds will be playing out in every relationship, in your connection to yourself, and money, and pretty much everything. So the minute you step out of your comfort zone, the minute that you decide to go bigger, the minute you hit an upper limit, that is the underneath the trigger wounding that is showing itself up. So essentially, the blocks are within you. And to understand that frees you from the stories of thinking that the life and the desires and the things that you want aren't possible for you because somehow you're being blocked. You're not being blocked in the linear sense. It just means that there is something in the unconscious and on an energetic soul level that is coming up for you to heal, clear, and integrate, merge back with yourself, do the polarity integration so that you're no longer holding a resonance. And I'll go deeper into this. On a soul perspective, we choose pre-incarnation in alignment with the karma that we have from other timelines. We choose our core wounding, meaning we choose when we come into our incarnation with our families, we choose particular lineages that will hold certain frequencies so that we can ensure that we experience the wounding again, which is allowing us through cause and effect to come up against the same energies, with the thought being that we would then alchemize, we'd be able to complete that cycle. Now, that often means that, for example, if you came into a lineage like myself, my soul desired safety and security, and I came into a lineage that would not have that at all. So you might have come into a lineage that there was not really a true depth of love. There was a superficial, conditional love whereby you felt that you were accepted on some level if you behaved a certain way, but there wasn't the level of depth of unconditional love that perhaps your soul needed. So we hold certain woundings from other timelines because we are multidimensional souls, beings. We will incarnate into certain experiences, certain lineages that hold a like-for-like resonance so that we have the opportunity to basically heal those parts of ourselves, integrate that soul aspect back in, and be able to move forwards. It's about the spirals of ascension and descension. So when we have a trigger, it's showing us something in the unconscious, a darker frequency, shall we say, something that's hidden from us. We might call it the shadow. It allows us to go deeper into these pieces. And when we alchemize them, we create more space to ascend, to bring more light in. So when we are looking at core wounding and how this plays out in business, in love, it's one of the key things that I've been working on with clients, I'd say, for the past 8 months. And I've been really focusing on going quite deep one-to-one with my Diamond Brilliance clients. The reason for this is these wounds are really hard to be able to get at yourself. You need to work with somebody else to get to them because they are so unconscious. So if we understand on one level, everything is about you in relation to you, whether it's taken on from this incarnation, whether it's experiences that have been brought through your multidimensional versions of self from other timelines, for example, whether it's also something that your monadic group or the oversoul is bringing through because it is a collective you that is wanting to alchemize something or learn something. And we all have very different, unique themes. So when we're working really individually, there is an element of there's different places that these things could originate, but there is never a distinct 1 + 1 = 2. We are so powerful as creators that we have created such unique nuances for ourselves. But this is where the mastery comes in. This is where getting to know yourself comes in, because the more that you can understand your own soul journey, the more that you understand the patterns you've come in with, the more you understand what is yours and what isn't, but also how whatever limit, trigger, experience you come up against, you know that there is always an answer within you on some level. You might not be able to access that immediately, but there are ways to learn how to do that. There are ways to be able to master certain tools and certain ways to gather that information. Building a deeper connection with the different levels of consciousness within you, literally by dialoguing with it, will be a starting point. Autonomic writing is something else that's another option. So when we're looking at core wounding, what we're actually beginning to look at is unmet needs. So when we're looking at unmet needs, it's not just necessarily that you've had a massive traumatic event. However, the culmination of not having a particular need met at key emotional development age groups affects both your personality development, the defense ego mechanisms, and it blocks you from really connecting into the truth of who you are, because the defense mechanism is there blocking that original wound being felt. So attachment theory looks at a little bit of this, which would be from 0 to 18 months, looking at the connection to self and being able to self-regulate and recognize that the world is a safe place and I'm going to have my needs met, and I can feel, if I deregulate that, my mother's going to soothe me. If I was fed, I was going to get fed. If I needed feeding, I got fed. But sometimes that connection doesn't work very well because mum might be not particularly confident, or she might be depressed, or she might have been really busy working. So her ability to attune to our needs meant that perhaps, and I'm not talking like the odd time, but there was a consistent situation whereby we were not able to have that equilibrium that should have come by having our needs met by a mother. So when we're looking at that, we're looking at really our root chakra. So those experiences around our connection to the earth, our connection to our body, feeling that we have a place in the world, feeling that we can create roots in this world. And that also links into money, survival. Yeah. So these things are actually coming up from the next 2 years, are going to be massively playing out in the collective, because it's all about the illusion, which is a collective, trauma, collective belief system, that safety is always outside of ourselves, or that there's never enough. That scarcity frequency, which also plays into the money system, which also plays into not enough love, comes into this lack frequency. When we heal and alchemize at soul level and begin to actually realize that this has programmed part of our key energetic matrix, we then stop being influenced by things that come from scarcity, fear. We're able to actually realize that that isn't our actual truth. We can feel it in our bodies. We can actually pull more of our soul essence in, and we're much more grounded. If we aren't grounded, we will not be able to manifest what we want in our lives across all broad ranges of things. So the unmet needs around that root chakra area, and we'll call them kind of attractors. So say, for example, you can only attract what you hold a resonance for. So if there is a particular wound, which can be a program, an imprint, it can be an implant device, it can be an entity, we do need to talk about these things. Where there is trauma, there is always entities. Where there are addictions, there are always entities. Where there are addictions in lineages, there is spiritual bondage. There are energetic agreements that allow that bleed through to come into your both physical anatomy, through the bones, through the spine, through the hips, but also through your energy centers. So this means that there may be a consciousness that is holding this fear-based consciousness in place for you. So when we do the soul and the energetic work, because the way I work is energy first, we go in and we clear anything that could be holding this stuff in place, firstly. Secondly, we will go and we will pull up and look at the timeline of what is the root experience, what is the root experience that has happened. And also to add, the quantum field means that everything is happening still. So if you have a traumatic event, there will be a fragmentation of the soul. The soul remains experiencing and animating with all the energies and whatever else was going on still. That imprint, that connection, that resonance then correlates to the particular chakra, because they're not all developed immediately as you're born. They develop through your own emotional development, through your early stages of development of life. So really, you're looking at kind of like 0 up to about 10 years old. So when we're kind of going in and realizing that there may have been an experience that you were maybe born premature. And I actually had this with a client who was vaping, addictive vaping to the degree that it was almost like a pacifier, like a dummy. And if she wasn't vaping, then she was using like lip gloss. And it was something that was so unconscious, but I was like tracking, I was like, what's going on here? When I looked at what was playing out, she was born early. She was in an incubator and had lots of tubes. The tubes had been put in at a really awkward angle and had actually affected her physiology and her body. So she held herself in a particular way in the adult version of self. And she would not have been not only breastfed, but she would not have had that need met initially. So that meant that in present day, she was unconsciously playing out these addictions to meet the unmet need. So I went in and did the deep healing work on that aspect of herself and then reintegrated that part of her back in. She stopped vaping that day and has never vaped again. The addiction went. We obviously cleared and integrated and did the different pieces that are needed. But the reason I'm sharing this is that if there are blocks in your present day, there is always something at root that will be animating in the background. And it means that you are essentially not able to be your true unapologetic self, because these pieces are the unconscious that runs the show in the background. So then we begin to look at the sacral chakra. So we're looking at, your connection to your body, your connection to yourself as a woman or a man, and remembering that also your connection to the opposite sex. All of these imprints, and also, if you are a woman, you have a womb, you're holding the epigenetics, the imprinting of both your mother, your grandmother, and that is a whole dimensional portal of, the female lineage that you hold. So we often have a lot of pieces that are entangled with other people. There may be experiences that you had that were maybe shameful or guilt, or things that have actually meant that got fractured off. If there was abuse, if there was sexual abuse, there will be an energetic entanglement. These things can block you unconsciously from having the relationships you want, because you hold the frequency and the entanglement with something that is perhaps what you don't want to be attracting in as a relationship. And then you energetically are a match for the same disempowerment or the same feelings of unsafety or unworthiness, because you will attract somebody that holds the opposite side of the coin to you, because you have the resonator within you. And it's not just clearing your chakras. It's not just, you can't tap this stuff away. There is a deep learning and alchemy that happens at soul level when you integrate that part of your soul fragment back into you. What it often does is it brings not only more of your soul essence into your body, you will find that part of you holds particular gifts, wisdom, information, and bringing that essence back in, especially in these lower 3 chakras, which are basically our connection to the physical form, will then amplify how you manifest, how you create, how you show up in the world. And recognizing that the solar plexus, another one, is looking at your personal power, your connection to your body autonomy, your ability to exercise your free will, your ability to also exercise free will around your personal energetic boundaries, your psychic boundaries, and your physical boundaries. When we've maybe been in an experience where we've had maybe a narcissistic parent or deeply critical parent, or we've been made to deeply question and doubt ourselves, that's all encoded there. And there will be experiences, especially if there was a level of abuse or trauma or a particular unmet need, meaning that perhaps it was imprinted on you that the only way that you would be accepted is if you played the good girl, or if you got the grades, or you were maybe made to compete against a sibling, or maybe your family only rewarded academics, but they didn't reward your creativity. So you learnt that you had to suppress part of your natural energetic self and expression in order just to fit in or have a level of safety. So you basically sacrifice part of your personal power And this is so unconscious, and all of us have something, because at soul level, we've come in to essentially experience these things and alchemize them. And the reason I share that these are blocks to you being unapologetically yourself is that the journey of the soul is for you to literally come back to your wholeness, to reclaim these parts that are operating in the background that are keeping you literally out of being fully self-expressed, because on some level there is a slight like-for-like resonance. Your nervous system gets triggered, you go into a level of fight or flight, you're blinkered, your body is responding as though something is happening, and that unconscious part of yourself will be animating and literally can affect, who you attract in, your experiences, your lens of perspective, your mindset. And it's very hard to override that if you have no idea why it keeps on happening. And the irony is that we actually think that this is us. That's just the way I am, but it's not. These are defense mechanisms that form part of we'll call it the wounded ego, essentially. So the ego is not our enemy. The ego, we actually brings us just as many clues. And when we work with the ego, actually the ego can lead us to these things. When the trigger happens, there is always gold on the other side of the trigger. It's inviting us to clear the field, reset, and then explore, to look at what came up there, because this is showing me something that is energetically now ready to be alchemized so that I can expand into greater levels of myself again and again and again. And to give you a scenario, I had another recent client who she's worked with me many different times, and she had one of my quantum business sessions probably about maybe 3 or 4 months ago now. And it was an amazing session. And she's actually in a position where literally it's the kind of position that people would kind of hope and pray for. She would have access to probably 200 new clients every month. So she didn't need to worry about lead generation. She would have key expertise because she is in partnership, as in she is in a relationship with the owner and partner of the business that she would be at. And she was bringing her own modality into the medical field. So loads of opportunity for also helping many people. It was deeply soul aligned. And the thing is, for her to be able to step into that role, she needed to set new boundaries. She needed to create a level of exit plan for her to transition into a new role where she was essentially still going to be in the business, but she would have been operating differently under her own guise and what she was doing. Now, she came into my space probably about a month ago, and she was like, I've manifested all this illness. I'm not been able to work for the past few weeks. I'm burnt out. And I said to her, so what steps did you take, after you had everything, you had the strategy, you had all of the information there, like literally everything lined up. Like this would have been like ready to go, amazing, everything, step by step. Part of her, which was actually a teenage version of her, had basically been running the show in the background. And rather than her having the conversation with her partner to say, look, I've helped you for the past 10 years build this business. I'm running my, side hustle, and it's now time for me to integrate it into full time. For me to do that, I need your support now. And to do that, obviously, I will backfill my position, but I need to start to forge, what is a soul calling, what I'm here to do. And I know it's deeply aligned because I'm getting all the clients coming to me and people are asking for it, which is always the big green light. The universe is bringing me these people to help. And now is the time. In her mind, she did not want to have that conversation. And in her mind, and this aspect of her that was maybe, I think, 17 years old, that had been kicked out of home, had no money and had to sort it all out herself, that part of her had been running unconsciously and had then meant that she did not have the conversation. She created a story in her mind that somehow she would end up with no money, trying to support her daughter on her own and homeless, which was obviously nothing to do with the present day reality of what would happen at all. And none of this makes linear sense because this is not working on the linear brain. This is operating on a fragmented, traumatic, split version of self that is running in the background unconsciously. And she actually manifested the illness because she's like, if you can imagine your channel of light, if you start deviating and ignoring what you're here to do, your soul will find a reason for you to stop what you're doing and move you into the path you're meant to be. And that was when she came to me. So if you can imagine that version of her, when I tuned into the whole field, I said, well, some of this is about understanding that part of you is running the show and there needs to be healing and integration. And this is the core wound work. But there's also about understanding of, a level of intimacy and vulnerability. If you're in a relationship with somebody and you're supporting them in their endeavors, I would expect that there would be some level of them being able to support you when it's time and being able to have that vulnerable conversation, and that it's a teamwork and it's a collaboration. So if you are not confident or comfortable having conversations with your most intimate partner, asking for support, I'd be inquiring why. So when we went deeper, this was nothing to do with the guy. This again was this 15 or 17-year-old version of self that was running the show in the background. The guy had taken the whole office off to some orphanage abroad to do a week's worth of charity work. And I said to her, why do you think that he would say no to you and you would somehow lose everything you have, yet he's happy to shut down his offices, lose any income for a week or two, and take everybody abroad to go and work in an orphanage to give something back and do this kind of work that he's been doing for many years? Why would it be okay for him to support a load of people that he doesn't know versus his most intimate partner? This is how unconscious this stuff is. It doesn't make any linear sense. And when I tuned into him and his energy, he is somebody that deeply wants to protect and support. But if he doesn't know what she needed from him, he's not a mind reader. So by her not speaking her needs, because she was frightened of the consequences, like if she spoke up, suddenly it's easier to be quiet and suppress your needs than be vulnerable and potentially, have a no or, rejected, or in her mind, she went to some opposite end of the spectrum of being homeless and not being able to support her daughter. So these unconscious needs sabotage us, not just in those situations where somebody literally has everything on a platter lined up and everything set up to work for them. That's somebody that also has been doing her deep inner work. That's somebody that's been working on herself at soul level for years. This stuff comes up in layers. So it's not I do one session and boom, it's gone. Your journey is to go into deeper levels of yourself, deeper levels of compassion, deeper levels of integration, deeper levels of owning your truth and your voice. So can you see that even though that core wound came up, there were so many gifts there. There were so many gifts in understanding where she wasn't being honest with herself. So many gifts in realizing that she was ignoring all the senses that her body had been telling her, all of the information that had been the feedback, so much so that she got to the level of burnout and then she had to listen. When we don't get the support, when we're going through transitions and transformation, we are highly likely to have these pieces arise because they are the energetic blocks that don't align with that version of you that's stepping into the next level of whatever you're doing in your life. So I have seen it happen with people completely lose their voice before they're meant to do speaking events. Again, these all have things that are playing out in the background. Sometimes it's past life. Sometimes you, when you in another timeline, owned your gifts. You owned your spiritual integrated gifts, and perhaps you got persecuted for it. Perhaps your family rejected you when you came out with your abilities as a herbalist or healer or whatever it was. Perhaps it was in a time when it was dangerous for a woman to, own the fact that she was connected to nature, that she was connected to her body, that she was connected to the cycles, because then you would have been branded a witch and that put the whole family at risk. We only understand these things not by reading a book, by actually reading your own soul book, the soul records, to go in and understand who you are, why you have created the experience that you have, why you've chosen those things, and then recognizing that you can alchemize and integrate those experiences so that you start to become your own life architect. Life is not happening to you, but it is happening off the back of past events, these things that you've agreed, the outstanding pieces that are animating in the background. And the only way that you collapse out the timeline is by looking at the energetics and the soul. From that place, obviously, we are then stepping in, once it's integrated, we are stepping into the can do. I can do, I commit, I know it's available for me. I'm aligning to the open possibilities and expansion that now present to me. That's where we do our mindset. That's where we look at our, more higher level beliefs, I will call it, because the core stuff is entangled in this kind of trauma and unmet needs. When we go in and do the architecture work, which I call like the energetic architecture work, which is within your biohologram, you'll hear more of this being shared as, quantum biology and quantum physics is beginning to be so advanced, like literally every day there seems to be something new that's discovered. When you realize that it's your consciousness just in different varying levels of self, you're going to have the human lens that is animating through the biology and the nervous system that will be potentially, imprinting certain stories that are not necessarily exactly truth. And that can keep us in a lot of dense suffering and scarcity and cycles. But knowing that there is always a higher perspective, there is always a purer, higher perspective that comes in from soul, that devoid of the stories, devoid of the he said, she said, this makes this means this, because all of these meanings are applied by you. When you zoom out, when you take the soul's highest perspective, when you realize that what you're actually trying to learn had been, animated through many, many times, when you realize that you have a contract with somebody, and for you to learn forgiveness, they had to lower their frequency and do something to you where you would have a reason to forgive them. That's how this soul contracts and agreements work. Nobody is ever truly a victim. The drama triangle way of viewing things is actually only exclusive to the 3D. So we understand we're going to have a lens, we learn through levels of story, but when we take ourselves up into a higher frequency of viewpoint, we come into neutrality. And when we come into neutrality, we can actually collapse a lot of this discordant energy, which is the resonance that calls in more of the discord. We can collapse it in. So this means that you always have some level of power, even over things that seem like a mountain. But we often cannot see what we can't see. This is why we work with other people who can literally, because they're neutral, because they're not connected to the story and the emotional charge that's running through the body and the animation of the fact that this has happened however many times and oh my gosh, it's happening again. They can get straight there for you. And in doing so, there is a level of entrainment energetically, which also helps you entrain your frequency to theirs, which again helps you come out of the cycle. And when we do the soul work, that is the most loving expression that you can offer yourself, the deepest level of love and compassion, to reclaim the parts of yourself that are still in a level of suffering, and to take the lessons, to take the gifts, to take the power from those experiences and to turn it into your gold. So I'm going to throw this out here because lots of people are going to be waking up. Yeah, we're going in this massive, massive precipice of change. And the next 2 years, expect anything that is out of alignment with who you truly are as a soul, because these woundings are not your truth. They hold gifts once they're alchemized. They will allow you to raise your consciousness. They will allow you to have deeper depths of forgiveness and compassion, which are actually virtues that you need to master in order to expand your consciousness. So they bring gifts. They help you evolve. They also help you step further into the truth of what you're here to do. If you were somebody that came onto this planet to write a book and you have a powerful transformational story, if you are not writing you are going to be feeling that whatever job you did, whatever experience you step into, there's something missing. It's not enough. I don't feel like I'm expressed. I don't feel that I have that level of excitement and energy flowing through me. Why? Because you're not living in alignment with what your soul is wanting to express. And knowing that if you're here to share potent energetic transmission and codes through your transformational story, you will have had to have lined up some stuff to go through, overcome, not be teaching and sharing from your trauma, but from your evolution, from the expansion, because then other people can go, wait a minute, that happened to me. Oh my gosh. Rather than me being a victim, actually, there's another lens of perspective. There's a higher perspective. This allows me to see my own power and light where I could not see that in myself. You cannot share from that if you've not gone through these initiations. If you cannot see the soul's highest perspective and you don't really know the wider picture of it, it's very hard to start writing, start living in alignment with your soul purpose, because there's that little bit that's missing that essentially will almost reframe the whole thing into recognizing that all of this was something on some level you orchestrated, and that you can turn it into your power, and that in the way that you articulate it and share that coding and share that information, you will inspire, activate, and actually accelerate somebody else's healing. You allow them to feel those codes of compassion that you had to have for yourself again and again and again, when you realize that this is not just the first rodeo. You've been back in this cycle, often with the same souls in other timelines, doing the same old nonsense together and still not learning. But you understood now. You understood the entanglements so that you do not recreate them now. You start to be powerfully self-responsible in the choices you're making day to day, so that you don't walk into the same traps, and that you get to clear this, not just for yourself, you clear it for all of those involved. Because we don't evolve by just going, it's only about me. It isn't. We're a we consciousness. We are ultimately interrelated. If you're entangled in something, quantumly entangled, that means there's soul contracts. That means there's trauma. That means there is something that will, even if it's across different energetic planes, the astral plane to the physical plane or whatever, you will still have some level of connection. You can free yourself. You can pull your energy back. And then you start to realize that that is part of what you're here for. Regardless of any job or expression or anything like that, is to literally pull yourself back into your wholeness, and that you have the power and potential to be able to do that. But nobody's shown us. Well, that's not strictly true. We haven't known, our lineages haven't known. It's not really been taught in that way. And we've also been in a holographic holding zone where we were held up until 2018 in cycles of karma, meaning we couldn't even escape it. It was a trap. It was something that was holding us energetically. More people are waking up to the level of distortion and interference on this plane. And I will share more of that when the time is right. So understanding that there is always another level to the dimension of experience that you have. And I want to add something else, because I've obviously been through some pretty horrific stuff myself. You will never, ever make sense out of the way that some people choose to live their life and what they will do to other people. And you will try and drive yourself bonkers by trying to get in somebody else's mindset, because you aren't them. You aren't holding the karma. You aren't holding the lack of light. You aren't holding the discord. So don't try to understand others' choices. You actually distract yourself from coming into a deeper level of compassion and integration for yourself. And this is tough. This is tough stuff when it comes to our ancestors, and you realize that they made choices that are deeply misaligned with your values. But we have to understand that anyone that is making choices that create pain and suffering, if we can come back to the place that what led them to be so caught up in only operating through their shadow and darkness and through the pain, and understanding that some souls, including ourselves, through every other timeline, we have played every role. You've played the persecutor. You've played the one that was the baddie. You may be playing the victim in this lifetime. We've played it all. Men, women, we've played all. And if you can come to a place of not needing to get into somebody else's mindset as to why they have shown up as to who they are, and you can actually do the forgiveness work at soul level, that will collapse everything out and disentangle you from them. It also means that you don't need to hold on to the bullets of pain. You are no longer holding the resonators that keep on having you in these cycles of experiences with love, with relationships, with money, with business partnerships. Nothing happens for no reason. There is always a route. Everything can be tracked. So when we understand that, and we perhaps are making more conscious choices in our day-to-day, or we work in coherence with, like when I take women through my group immersions, we are going into this deeper work and alchemizing this stuff maybe in an hour or two. You are not re-experiencing the trauma. You are not needing to collapse and go into some level of massive healing crisis. No, we don't have time to do that. You're needed at a higher frequency. You're needed at a remembrance of who you are. If you're here to write a book, you need to be healing those pieces that allow you to really frame your transformation story so you can bring it through. If you are here to open yourself up as a clear channel, then you will need to go through the initiations of being able to clear where you have been out of alignment as a healer, as a channel, as a psychic, as a shaman, or whatever else you may have been. You will be required to clear those pieces up before you will be allowed to go through that next level, so that you don't do it out of alignment, so that you aren't doing it where you're abusing your power. That's why we're in the situation we're in at the moment collectively. There is a mass clearing of shadow. There is a huge amount of stuff that's happening on this planet at this time, which connects to Egypt and the fall of Egypt and all of the distortion in the money system connected to Egypt. And when we want to understand truly what's gone on in history, your soul records, understand who you are and piece it together, and understand that every stone holds a resonance and a consciousness and allows you to tap into an etheric field and higher information when you clear your channel and your clairsentience enough to be able to translate that. The more that you understand your role in the different dynamics of who you've been and the different timelines, the more you get access to this information through yourself, not through a book, not through TikTok. You're your own encyclopedia of reference across every timeline, even off-world. So we're in this amazing time where much of the advanced technology is reverse engineered. This is information that's coming through people that they are remembering or activating. They might not know where it's coming from, but it is part of this acceleration. The more of us that are not operating through the pain body, the emotional body, will mean that we have less and less people that are operating through fear. It means that we're going to see changes in the way that people sell and the way that people are marketing, because we're going to be able to feel inherently, does this come from a authentic intention? Because everything's in the field, we can read it. It takes time, it takes diligence. It means that you're going to have to recognize that there are certain lessons and learnings, meaning, do you know the difference between your energy and something that isn't yours? Can you track that? It's all possible to be learnt and remembered, but it takes a level of practice. So the commitment and the growth comes at your choice to commit and grow for yourself. It's a dedication to yourself. So when we're looking at these core wounds, to know that the desired relationship you want is on the other side of understanding what part of yourself needs to be seen, what part of your story needs to be revealed to you in a way that now it is safe to do it, and in a way that actually not only alchemizes that experience, but if you have others in your ancestral lineage that are also holding that same, imprint, that miasm, that you have the gift to free everybody. Can you see how powerful you are? Can you see that every wound, every fracturing, every experience gives you the gift and the opportunity to heal for literally thousands of other souls? And that gives me goosebumps thinking about it. There were 4,500 ancestors that had to come before you for you to be born. We don't just have to go 2 generations back. We can go right the way back, and I do. For those that were in my International Women's Day session last week, we cleared the energies back to the root ancestor on the female line of self-sacrifice. We discovered their stories, their experiences, and how that is an energy that is now being carried into the now and showing up. Women that weren't able to have relationships, women that were blocked from having children, women that kept on having cycles of attracting abusive men into their lives. These things bring us a richness of understanding ourselves, our lineages, but deeper levels of compassion. We get to break these cycles in this lifetime. It literally is set up that way for you to do that. And to understand that we don't need to shy away from this level of healing. But many people that find me have been trying to break the cycles for many, many years using many different modalities, and they've not been able to. And it literally takes such a short amount of time, like literally a few sessions, perhaps, depending on what we're going through. So I'm knowing that we are going into this huge cycle from spring to September, where into the summer periods, there's going to be a big review period of relationships. So people are, those that have been sitting in relationships, and that includes business relationships, and that includes perhaps your connection to working for a certain organization, all of it's going to be coming up for review, because it's often where huge amounts of our life force energy sits. So if it is not in alignment anymore, and you are not able to co-create something for your collaborative growth, and actually it becomes a block to your true soul path and trajectory, things are going to start to move, meaning you're going to leave relationships, but you have to leave things and heal these pieces in the background that attracted them in the first place, to open up the space to attract in something new. So it means that even though we might have these challenging situations where we, use our voice, where we become vulnerable, where we start to tap into what we truly want and start claiming it, there is always gold on the other side of that. And it becomes a muscle, a confidence muscle, to trust ourselves more, to listen to ourselves more, to deepen that relationship, because we're no longer neglecting ourselves. We're no longer being the abuser of ourselves by ignoring ourselves or not listening to ourselves and putting everybody else's happiness above our own. It's like, now's the time to start forging that deeper connection with ourselves. And it's going to mean a lot of people are going to move location, move jobs, lots of change as they start to be more authentically themselves. But understanding that if we run away from things, you will attract the same boss, the same partner, just in a different guise, because you are holding the same resonators within you. That part of you in the background thinks, great, I'm away from the danger now, but you just attract it back in because the experience has not been collapsed and integrated in. Is this making sense for people? Pop some comments in if this is resonating for you and what's coming up. I'd love to hear. And if you're catching this on replay later, pop replay. So what this means is this is a precipice of change to go truly back into the abundance of the infinite potential that we connect into as souls. We know that there are multiple timelines available for you in the quantum field, meaning that much of our lives are a bit like sliding doors. I don't know if you remember that Gwyneth Paltrow film. If you haven't watched it, go and watch it. My life has been described a lot like that. You get up late, you miss the tube, and one timeline of experience occurs, and the other version where you got up, you got on the tube, and then you had another experience whilst going to work. Two completely polarized different experiences. And that's kind of really what's happening with us day by day. We're getting to choose the reality that we interrelate with daily, but we've just not been aware of quite how it can literally be a change of routine, a change of thought, a disruption, a change in our patterning that can create the new timeline of opportunity. The synchronicity, the meeting the new person, the hearing the wisdom that drops in, that opens us up to explore something, and then we open the book and we find the information, and then it takes us somewhere else, and then we meet the next person we're meant to meet. When we follow those threads, when we get into flow, our intuitive teams will start to provide us with more of this. We start to listen more to that than the linear. Your soul is not linear. And the trajectory of the expansion, of the excitement, of the stuff that you are yearning, those feelings that you want, they are coming up for you because it's something that your soul desires to express, feel, and embody. And for you to find the experiences that align you to that is going to bring you more fulfillment. So if you're not feeling it in the relationship, in the job, in the whatever else you're sat in now, it's an invitation. It doesn't mean that this is the absolute end and this is all that's possible for you. It means that something has expired. It's up for review. And now it's for you to choose yourself to claim the next level. And in going through that initiation, what is in out of alignment with your next level will come up for you. Yeah, these aren't blocks. They're things that are coming up to show you what needs to be alchemized in order for you to align to really your highest potential. So when we're looking at energy first, things move quickly, seamlessly, not with loads and loads of drama. So I'm opening up my first group container this year. And we're doing it this week. I was guided on the 22nd, we will do a bonus session, which is basically going to be a spring equinox activation. I've got something really powerful that wants to come through. I started my initiation to prep for this 2 weeks ago. And if you follow me on my other pages, you'll see that I've gone and basically made a commitment and a declaration at Avebury Stone Circle. So it is embedded into the earth. This is a commitment to assist a number of women to go through this next transformation, because the more people that are, the level of healing I'm doing is affecting thousands as well. But the more women we have that are aligned in their truth, that are living unapologetically themselves, that becomes a new template as what women get to align to. Not the self-sacrifice, burn out, there's nothing available for us, patriarchal view of literally what women have had to work through. We are breaking these templates. We are breaking where we have been entrained into them through our ancestral line. We are getting to understand that there are communities of women like myself that have radically rebirthed ourselves, transformed our situations, our lives, left corporate, made amazing salaries there, but then made more money through being authentically ourselves in our businesses. And it gets to grow. You get to rebirth yourself. It's not just one step and that's it for the end of your days. It gets to grow as you do. And that if you have something within you that needs to be shared in the world, this is going to be the time of that alchemy to put you into that position to start to do that. So I have many different people from many different backgrounds and industries in my group. For me, it's about soul. So, this is somebody that is deeply desiring to be connected to a soul-aligned life. And that requires a level of doing this inner work. So we're not limiting ourselves by what someone else thinks that we should be earning, because actually that's only one level of belief and truth, and it's not infinitely connected to our souls. Money alchemy is huge for women. And we're going to be covering money energetics, so a lot of money healing. This program is called Unapologetically You, and it's going to be 4 months. It's going to be a combination hybrid of both one-to-one, so that you get to have the real deep dive stuff with me, which is really where we get to transform the things that you've not been able to get to, essentially. And that's in month 1 and month 3. There will then be the bonus session we talked about. There's also going to be 4 group healing ceremonies and 4 group Q&A strategy, because once we've done the energetic realignment, we then want to bring in the upgraded messaging, the timelines, the mindset, the strategy. If we try and change just at mindset, just at that level, energetically you cannot basically align to the highest soul timeline, because you're still holding on to the stuff that's playing out in the background, the unconscious stuff. And there is the possibility, if you want to have deeper access, like a lot of my one-to-one clients will be in Voxer with me, which means you have access to me Monday to Friday, 12 till 5. So, literally I can tune into something and give you a completely bird's eye perspective, which allows you to radically, reset, transform and realign in like 10 minutes whilst you're going through things day to day. So there is a potential to have that high level support if that's what you desire. This is for somebody who is realizing that it's not just focusing on one area of your life. If we work on money, we're going to be working on, your health. We're going to be working on your energy field. We're going to be working on often your relationship with yourself. What's going on with love? What's going on with, can you receive? And collectively as a group, you get so much more because you will hear everybody else's experiences, and each of us collectively would have had the resonance to come into space and sacred space together, because there is something that each of you get from each other. So that also means that because it comes into the collective field, you not only get to heal and alchemize the key things that have come up for you, we get to work collective field. So whatever comes up in the space, we get to heal the whole lot. These spaces are deeply transformational. If you want to have a look at past testimonials of just the kind of stuff that happens in quite a short amount of time, we're talking, 3 or 4 months, have a look on my website, www.purelight1111.com. Go to, I think it might be About Me and then Testimonials, and watch some of the videos. All of the women are from, they're all professionals. There's a doctor on there. There's a CIO, an accountant, all, successful women, deeply aligned to soul and spiritual work and doing their inner work and desiring to be more authentically themselves on their terms. Because this is not about you going into some kind of religious dogma. This is not about you removing a load of dysfunctional patriarchal belief systems and then just taking on a load of others. This is about you carving out the truest expression for yourself and understanding that there will be layers of this, but this is the invitation to really, really work at quite an intense, meaning we're in a powerful vortex. We're not going to be kind of avoiding stuff. We're going to go into the deep dive so that you get to actually spend more time in the high vibrational set point, because that's when you're a magnet for the new opportunities. So this is for somebody who is basically desires it, somebody who is, a action taker in their life, somebody who owns their decisions, somebody who trusts themselves, because, this is about you in relation to you. And this is meaning that if you know deep inside that you're here for something, you're here, whatever it might be, and whether it is some kind of artistic expression of your soul, and that you are wanting to be around people that are coming from the heart-centered, conscious model, meaning this is the future template, and you want to do it in a space where the alchemy is happening over literally 4 months rather than literally years of trying to piece things together. And, I can take you through what I'm initiated in. So, you are not going to get the same as my Soul Architect series modality, because that has uniquely come through my initiations, my alchemy, my experiences, my lineage, and everything else that I brought in. But that also means that I can collapse time around you integrating the pieces you need to quantum leap. And also being able to identify when you're playing out with self-sabotage, when you have your blind spots, what's actually going on, so that we get to face them without fear. Half the struggle we create is in our own mind or when we're running from our own self. This is the power of working in these spaces and getting the support in a compassionate, loving, and safe way to go into the deeper stuff, to alchemize all of it energetically, so that fear frequency just isn't even there anymore. You just have a deeper level of compassion and understanding of who you actually have been, the choices you've made, and it just gives you a broader view of who you are. You're not just the mother or the woman that sat in the bank behind the computer. It's like you are so expansive. You are so powerful and bright. But all of this other conditioning and stuff is in the way. And my role is to help you illuminate. And then you get to assist the others in your life. Just by being you, you will start to have an alchemical shift. And they then start to get that awakening of who they could be. So if this resonates with you, I've actually popped the details in the blurb. So there is a sales page. Reach out to me. There's also an email list and everything as well. These core wounds, they are coming up, not to be pushed away, not to be avoided. It's because these are the upper limits to the money you desire, the new job, the relationship, the struggle that you've had where you felt stuck, consider that the stuff that is creating that energetic block are these pieces. So always gold on the other side of the trigger. There is always another timeline of expansion available for you. It's not going to come through your mind. It comes through coming from it from the perspective of wholeness, the integration of the mind, body, soul, energetics. And that is the fast track. And that is the gift that I bring through the initiations that I run. And that's how we get to really, really move things forward. And I'm super excited to call those women in through this powerful spring equinox portal as well. So if this resonates with you, I would love to connect with you as well. And obviously some people out here on LinkedIn are new to coming into these spaces. And I completely appreciate that some of this language might be new to you and you might have more questions. So I invite you, you can reach out to me through my website and ask any questions and we can go into that. And, you know, if this isn't the right solution for you at this time, I do individual one-to-one sessions. You know, if it is only business that you want and you want to deep dive on, you know, your business, there's the quantum business audits as well. So there's the opportunity in a 90-minute session that we go and look at how do we upgrade everything on all levels, where are the blind spots, where energetically can be tweaked so that you then open up for that next thing. There's many different ways to play. So, you know, all of it requires some level of energetic realignment because that is the nature of how I work. But yeah, reach out, let's connect. And I'm super excited to be taking women on this amazing journey that I will be obviously going through and upgrading with everyone as well. And we get to essentially hold ourselves at a higher set point. So we are not being pulled into the lower collective timelines because there is a lot of distraction. Anything that's coming from fear is going to basically try and pull you into that belief system, and your nervous system then gets jacked up and it literally triggers certain events that can happen, which then just basically pull in this stuff that's unresolved. So when you're in the architectural vortex that I set up, we're not available for that. You are energetically held and protected. So yeah, that might sound otherworldly, and it is. So this also means you get access to fast track into, shall we say, magical teachings and universal laws and many other pieces that I bring into my grounded work with both clinical business background as well. So yeah, that's my gift, and sending you lots of love. And I hope this has been useful. And if you catch up with this later, I would love to know comments and feedback. And if you're catching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, like, and share, because the more people that can hear a different opinion that may resonate and open up a new access point for them, the more we get to alleviate some of the struggle and suffering that many are going through. So sending you lots of love. Take care. Bye-bye.